welcome to my channel. Well, when I first did this, I thought there was going to be like a part 1 and part 2. And then, I mean, it depends on how you categorize things. You can make it as broad or as narrow as you want. But I thought I'd pretty much gotten, covered everything. And then I started thinking, and I missed out on one very important handle material that we don't think about a whole lot, and that's stone. The original cutting tools were usually obsidian or flint, some kind of sharp, brittle stone. And it would be the whole knife, not just, the handle and stuff. And then another one I forgot about was paracord or bank line wrapped handles. Because a lot of times you'll get a knife handle that's basically skeletonized. It's there if you need it, but it's the bare minimum. It's usually not thick enough. It's slippery, all these other stuff. And people will add paracord to it. And the advantage to that is you've got the paracord if you need it. And you still have the knife if you need it. That's something you usually can't do with handle materials. And sometimes it may be just as simple as like this. Paracord would have been too thick with this thing, but bank line worked perfectly fine. And it gives you, it adds traction to it. It helps out a lot. And the stones, what I'm talking about, is the reason why you don't see those a lot is it's usually a combination of things. Like this is buckshot bone. You would look at it and you would think, well, that's not, just from a glance, that's not a stone. That's something else. But it's all in how they do it. It's simple ideas. And this, like this, sometimes they're reconstituted stones or, pieces of stone that are held together with glue. Sometimes it's a real stone. Sometimes it's a combination of everything. Like this one's abalone and like mother of pearl. It's supposed to be like turquoise, and this is either red jasper or something like that. And that's the stonework series. So it's in the name right there, and you don't think about that a lot of times, but that just gives you another option. And then this one right here, this is another combination. It's in their Old Southwest series from Rough Rider, but it has metal, so it's heavier. And sometimes that is an advantage when you have a small knife like a toothpick and stuff. And it's got stones in it. So, it's not 100% stone, it's not 100% metal. And you can have any combination, thereof of different things, like stone, wood, and everything else. But I was just thinking, I'm going to try to make this one a quick one. But I was just thinking that, they're not just for decoration a lot of times. Well, in many ways, that's what stone is being used here as a decoration. But in some cases, in many cases, a sharp rock, a flinty sharp rock or something, was enough to separate hide from flesh when you're getting ready to cook it. Because, I mean, if you've never skinned an animal or if you've ever wondered why people do that, well, there's multiple reasons, but one of them is you don't want to cook. You don't want to try to cook an animal, just throw the whole thing on there. First off, it's going to smell atrocious if you've ever smelled burning hair. Another one, it's inefficient. You got to burn through, and wasteful. Because that hide can be used for a lot of things, especially if you're, there's not a Walmart right next to you. You might need to make something out of it. So yeah, that's another one, and this is another example of like synthetic, it's red synthetic type of handles. But synthetic is also, I didn't cover that quite as much, but a lot of times you can get very expensive knives inexpensively if you go with synthetic. A lot of times case knives, for example, you can get a good case knife sometimes for under $50 if you're willing to go with like black or yellow or whatever, synthetic. And a lot of people, when they get a work knife, they want a synthetic handle, either because, like I said, the color makes it stand out. If you've ever lost a knife, that cool looking camouflage handle and everything, may become part of the forest or whatever if it gets in a background where you can't see it. And a red or orange or a yellow type of knife handle would stand out, you know, give you a chance to find it visually, you know, without having to search for it. So, you know, that's just another thing to keep in mind. Some people, like I said, they go for handle materials for show, and other people go for function. And usually plastic or some kind of handle like that, you can drop it quite a bit. You get a scratch, it gouges a little bit, but you're not really worried about it. You know, it's durable, not super durable that'll hold up forever. And then yeah, you can get some that get shrinkage and stuff like that, but they have their advantage, and one of them is they're lower cost than other handle materials. And the same thing with skeletonized. You have options there. If you don't like paracord, this is too thin or this is too thick, you know, you can just do paracord. You can also gut it. You can also take the strands out and then use that outer wrapping as your thing, and it's a little bit flatter, and you know, it's not quite as durable. It wouldn't be, you know, quite as dual purpose useful, you know, but everything doesn't have to be totally practical, you know, all the time. It can just be cosmetic. You know, a lot of this stuff, you know, people don't want to admit it a lot of times, but we're not far separated from our animal cousins, you know, like chimpanzees or stuff like that, because it's the shiny stuff that gets us. It's the pretty stuff a lot of times. Practical goes out the window sometimes. That can be said for anytime you get emotion involved, you know, like love or whatever. To you, your spouse may be the most beautiful thing, and that's great, you know, and other people might wonder why either you or her are with each other. You know, there may be some disparity there, but it doesn't matter what other people think. And that's the same way with handle materials. If somebody else, and like you, let's say you love this knife, you know, and you were showing it off, not to rub it in other people's noses, but, you know, just to say, isn't this a great looking handle material? And someone, sooner or later, someone, out of jealousy or whatever, or honesty, will tell you that they don't like that it's gaudy or something like that. Well, if your emotions are so invested in your handle material that everybody's got to like it, well, you might as well be disappointed right now. Let me disappoint you right now, let you down easy, because you're never going to please everyone. The most important thing is yourself or people around you, you know. And then the people around you is just secondary. The most thing, when you're buying a knife, you should buy it for, like I said, good reasons. The good reasons for you. You know, some people might say, well, I don't like that steel, or they could have used real stones, or blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and the price would have gone up and up and up and up as you keep saying they should have done this and done that. This is good enough to be kind of elegant, you know, without costing you hundreds of dollars. If you want to spend hundreds of dollars, that's fine. But if you don't have hundreds of dollars to spend, your handle material can reflect whether it's practical, pretty, or in between. It can be, you know, both practical and pretty, you know. And again, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, as they say, you know. So don't worry about what you find attractive and other people don't find attractive, whatever. If you're happy with it, don't let people rain on your happiness. We've got way too much of that unhappiness and fear and everything else going around, and you just need to be happy with what you've got sometimes, even if it's not hundreds of dollars, even if it's not a real stone but reconstituted, even if the steel is not a super wonder steel according to the latest forum or whatever. If it makes you happy, if it works for you, don't worry about what other people think about it, you know. I mean, if you're proud of this knife, it's like a red-headed stepchild or whatever, you know. If you're proud of it, don't be beating up on it because other people beat up on it. If you like it and it's yours, stick with it. Don't worry about what other people say. That's just my opinion. You know, there again, you can not go with my opinion and try to be a crowd pleaser, but I'm just telling you right now. I'm just trying to save you a little anguish. Uh, Happiness does not lie in pleasing the masses. I mean, not for me, and not for a lot of people that have ever tried it. You know, sooner or later, you're going to let that one little tiny negative comment or gouge at you get to you. And that's what usually that person wanted. See, they don't like you being happy. They don't like you being thrilled or whatever at something. And they'll dig. They dig deep enough. Sooner or later, they're going to find something that gets you. And then they'll just drop it in there like a little seed, like a bad seed. And you'll think about it and you'll toss it around. And if you realize what's going on, you'll just forget about it. You won't even worry about it, and you'll just go about your business. And that's the best way to do it. But every once in a while, people like ninjas at this stuff, psychological warfare. They'll drop one that'll get you much later. And again, that's all I'm trying to say is if you like whatever you've got, whatever handle material for whatever reason, and you're happy with it, then you've won. I mean, you don't need to investigate any further or get any more data or anything else because what you were seeking was something that made you happy. It's an individual type thing. If somebody tells you, don't collect those because if you want to collect things for investment, blah, blah, see, they already assumed that the whole reason you're collecting knives is for an investment. That may not be yours at all. The advice that they're giving you may be perfectly valid for an investment, but it might not be for your reason, which may be for fun or variety or whatever your reason is. If your reason matches up with theirs, then fine, you can take their advice. But just remember, just like with mine and with anybody else, no matter how many followers they've got, no matter how many years they say they've been in the game and stuff like that, it's advice, it's an opinion, at least for me. And you should try to not completely go on that one person's opinion, if you're trying to make all your decisions. And in my case, it's just an opinion a lot of times. It's not even advice. I mean, it's advice that you don't have to take my advice. It's kind of like, contradictory, but I don't like to control or manipulate people, I like to give people options and choices. And in handle materials, as within knives or styles of knives or types of knives or people you like to associate with that talk about knives, and you can find them all out there. There's some that this version is too crass. I can't have my kids around when they're there. All right, you don't like that. Some people do. Some people. You may have had a problem with alcohol before, and these people drink a lot. If it's causing a problem for you, even though you like the person, it's understandable if you don't join in on all that, if it starts tempting you. And that's all I'm trying to say on this is that I tried to get everything on these handle materials. I thought I had it covered, but when I left out stone, which is really, cavemen and stuff, that was some of our first cutting tools. And until recently, obsidian, it's still sharp as a scalpel when it's done right. It's brittle, but I mean, it very sharp. Until recently, it was the sharpest thing on earth. But we've come up with man-made things, I think, that, cut down to the nanometer or something, split atoms. That's about as close as you can get to cutting something apart. But anyways, there you go. I've branched off. I think this is the last of the handle materials. Now, there can be exotic stuff, again, like I said, and I could get more into, like hickory is good for this, and oak is good for that, and all that, but, I think I've covered as much of it as I wanted to without getting, too deep, and getting into molecular compositions of stuff, and patent dates, and all those other stuff, which are interesting on their own, but, I mean, I wanted this to be kind of like an overview, so there you go. I kept this one down to 15 minutes, even though like 10 minutes ago I said I was going to keep this short. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you want to, put down in the comments what your favorite handle material is. And anybody that sees that, I just ask that you don't, like try to beat up the other person. You're like, Daryl, you're full of crap. Obviously, the most superior. That's your opinion, and as long as you keep it civilized, you can disagree with other people. It's just this, let's try not to. Let's have good arguments, for good reasons. If we're going to have arguments, this shouldn't really be argument. This should be more like a discussion. Like I said. 15 minutes and 30 seconds. I've run my mouth too long, but thank you for watching, and have a nice day.